While it began its life as a US-only tournament, the Little League World Series has grown exponentially over the decades to become a truly global event. And as silly as it sounds when talking about a children's baseball tournament, it actually has a really interesting history for sports nuts of all ages. So today, let's run down some of the most interesting things about the Little League World Series. Number 10, it dates all the way back to 1947. Yeah, that's right. The first Little League World Series was more than 75 years ago now. That's an unbelievably long tradition for this event. It's held every August in South Williamsport, Pennsylvania, population 6,259 as of the 2020 census. If you went halfway between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, then you went north, you'd run right into it. Little League Baseball, as an organization, is actually one of the largest employers in the town, which kind of makes sense. The tournament is held in two stadiums, the Howard J. Lamedy Stadium and Volunteer Stadium. That Lamedy Stadium holds up to 10,000 people and is named for a former board member of Little League Baseball from the 1950s. His family newspaper company also donated the money for the land on which the stadium now sits. And yeah, I guess that'll get you a stadium named after you. Number 9, age requirements. So from the creation of the tournament in 1947 up until 2005, the age limit for players was set at children who turned 13 on August 1st of that year or later, which made sense as the tournament was hosted in August. However, in 2006, this age limit was widened to include players who turned 13 after April 30th. This meant that by the time the tournament rolled around in August, there were typically quite a few 13-year-olds playing. They tried to change this to get it back to being just 12-year-olds, but this caused a whole bunch of protests from a whole bunch of parents because their kids would lose a single season of eligibility. So they had to solve this for the tournament in 2018, where they made an exception. After that, starting in 2019, the cutoff is August 31st, meaning that 13-year-olds are definitely not playing in the Little League World Series. Most definitely. No way for 13-year-olds or older to play, not a chance. Unless someone fudged the paperwork, right? Number 8, age scandals. You knew this would happen, of course it would. This used to be a big deal in the past, especially when teams from developing nations would join the event. With poorer record keeping in their home countries, official birth certificates could be difficult to provide or then validated by the organizers. But the most famous example actually involved an American team. Some viewers may remember the name Danny Almonte. He was born in the Dominican Republic before moving to the US, where he played for a Little League team in the Bronx, New York City. He was considered a phenom at the 2001 Little League World Series. He was throwing upwards of 79 miles an hour, or 127 kilometers an hour, as a kid, and he stood 5 feet 8 inches tall. Seems unbelievable, right? Well, that's because it was. He was actually 2 years older than he should have been in order to play. This got crazy afterwards, and I'll spare you all the details. Perhaps it'll get a video of its own someday, but suffice to say, it was quite the scandal. And none of this, by the way, was Danny's fault, as he knew nothing about the falsified documents. It was so sad. Hey everyone, just a quick break here in between innings so I can ask a small favor. If you've got any awesome ideas for videos you'd love to see, drop them in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Y'all usually have amazing ideas, and thanks for all the previous suggestions, so keep them coming. All right, play ball. Number 7, US versus international divisions. So as mentioned, the Little League World Series started out as being 100% American, but that changed dramatically over time, and it actually changed pretty early in the event's history. The first international team to compete in the tournament was in 1952, when a Canadian team from Montreal joined in the fun, and the first international team to win the whole thing was just 5 years later in 1957, when a team from Monterrey, Mexico claimed victory. In 1976, international teams were split into their own bracket. So since then, it's basically been that half the teams are from the US and the other half are from non-US countries based on regional qualifiers. The international division has had its share of intrigue over the years, and it continues to serve as a tool to grow the youth game globally. For example, in 2012, a team from Uganda was the first to represent Africa at the Little League World Series. Number 6, Taiwan's stretch of dominance. Even though this is a uniquely American tournament in its origin, and half the teams are from the various regions of the US, there have been periods of absolute dominance by other countries, and this is no better illustrated than by Taiwan. From 1969 to 1991, a period that covered 23 tournaments, Taiwan was the champion 15 times. That is an absolutely incredible stretch that covers basically an entire generation of play. Taiwan's seeming monopoly on the tournament apparently has some geopolitical origins, as it's been stated that the government of Taiwan used the tournament as a national effort to combat its perceived diplomatic isolation around the world. Taiwan then went on to win 4 more championships between 1990 and 1996. However, they have not won the tournament ever since. Number 5, many MLB stars have played in the tournament. Since the Little League World Series is one of the peak events in youth baseball, it's not surprising that some of the players have gone on to eventually play Major League Baseball. And not just a few players either, like hundreds of kids who played in the Little League World Series at one point or another eventually landed in professional baseball. This includes eventual World Series champions such as Cody Bellinger, Jason Varitek, and Gary Sheffield. It also includes an MLB Home Run Derby king in Todd Frazier, an MLB Rookie of the Year in Jason Bay, and former MVP Boog Powell. Finally, I have to mention the legend himself, Yusmeiro Petit. He won the 1994 Little League World Series with his team from Venezuela, and then in 2014, 20 years later, he won the World Series with the San Francisco Giants. And to this day, he remains the only person to win both. Number 4, other famous Little League World Series alumni. Don't you think for a second that it's just famous Major League Baseball players who grace this tournament. Oh no, think again. Many NFL players have also appeared in the Little League World Series, including quarterbacks Matt Castle, Jake Fromm, and Brian Sight. Several NHL hockey players have also made it to South Williamsport, including Chris Drury, Ray Ferraro, and Pierre Turgeon. Austin Dillon, who competes full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series, driving the number 3 Chevy for Richard Childress Racing, he also played in the Little League World Series. And perhaps the last name you'd expect me to say in this section, Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, played in this tournament. He joined his teammates on the Dunedin national team that made it to the 1991 Little League World Series. Unreal. Number 3, insane TV coverage. Now again, remember this is a tournament for 10 to 12-year-olds. Keep that in the back of your mind as we talk about the media coverage. The first TV broadcast of the Little League World Series was the championship game way back in 1963. It was played on ABC Sports. For years, it was just the championship that was broadcast, which itself is amazing for a kids tournament, but starting in the late 1980s, the semifinals also got broadcast. And from there, it snowballed. By 2006, 28 of the 36 games in the tournament were broadcast on 3 different networks. And now, even the qualifying games to get into the tournament can be watched. Starting in 2018, all of the qualifying games can either be seen on a television network or a streaming service. It's incredible. And there's a chance, if you can believe it, that this is going to get even bigger, as in 2025, Fox Sports will take over the broadcasting rights as part of a 7-year deal. So who knows what could come after that. Number 2, girls in the Little League World Series. I have to confess that while I knew that girls had played in the Little League World Series, I thought only like 2 or 3 had played in the tournament, but boy, oh boy, was I wrong. As of the 2023 tournament, a total of 22 girls have played in the Little League World Series. The first one to do so was in 1984. She was named Victoria Roche. Curiously, she represented Belgium in the international bracket. 2 girls stand out as probably the most famous ones. The first is Chrissy Wendell Pole, who actually made a name for herself in hockey, as she was a 2-time Olympic medalist for Team USA and is currently an amateur scout for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the second is Monet Davis, who in 2014 was the first girl to earn a win as a pitcher, as well as the first female pitcher to record a shutout. She was also the first Little Leaguer to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. How cool is that? Number 1, total championships by country. So this probably goes without saying, but the United States has won the most championships in the Little League World Series. It just makes logical sense. But they've won it less times than you might perhaps think. In total, teams from the United States have won the tournament 39 times, which is a little more than half of the total championships. I don't know why, but I assumed it would be higher. For international countries, Taiwan, who we talked about before, leads the way with 17 championships. Japan is next with 11. Mexico has 3, Venezuela has 2, and little Curacao has 1. I can only hope my home country of Canada has a little more luck in the future. Well, there you have it. That's today's video. And see, I told you the Little League World Series is interesting. I was right, wasn't I? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if I missed any other fascinating facts, drop them down there so we can all learn something. Talk again soon, friends.